Hey YouTube, hey LinkedIn, hey Facebook. This is Tina Lorenz live streaming in this morning early. It's early. Had to go earlier today. So thanks for joining me if you're here live. And if you're not, then watch that replay and be sure you let me know if this was of value to you. Because today I'm going to talk about kind of a touchy subject sometimes of whether or not you should fire a client. Who are your worst clients and should you ever fire them? And the answer is yes. Yes, you should. So, what does it mean though? What does it mean when you fire a client? So, if they're not a good fit, if it's clear from the beginning or even before they become a client that they're not a good fit, then you need to be able to say, this isn't going to work so well. You're going to say that to yourself. You might say to them, you actually say, it's not a good fit. And you might, and not in a insulting way, but just say, I think there's someone else that can serve you better, that might be a better fit for you. And you release them with love and release them with gratitude that they were interested in the first place. And but sometimes it gets more serious than that. Sometimes you just need to release someone from your program or someone that you might have been working with because there's not the right energy, or they're actually not happy with where they're at. If that ever happens, and you're both kind of suffering for it, so you don't want to give your time and your energy to toxic relationships. And that's just when it gets more into the little bit heavier duty side. But if you're feeling that there's just not that right energy. Or the other thing that can happen a lot of times, especially for those of us that have a tendency to over deliver and truly care about those we serve, is that we kind of go a step too far, thinking that we can fix somebody or somehow make everything better for them. And so remember that our job is, especially as leaders and as influencers or people that are coaching, teaching, any of those things, our job is to lead. Our job is to guide. It's not to literally carry someone on our back and drag them through to the finish line and try and make it happen for them. We need to be able to work with people who are going to step up and take responsibility for taking action and be responsible for themselves as doing. You're giving the value and you're meeting them halfway, so to speak, and not trying to do it for them. And sometimes that can get confusing sometimes. So if it's not a good fit, again, just release those people with love. Sometimes here's a funny thing that can happen along the way. Sometimes when we release someone, or we're thinking it's not going to be a good fit with an initial conversation with a potential client, and we let them know that, sometimes they go off and think about that a little bit and they come back. I had a situation like that years ago with someone that my fees at the time were still pretty modest. I was just getting started, but I didn't feel it was going to be a good fit because they wanted to haggle on pricing. And this is something I never, ever do. And I recommend you don't either. And we'll talk about that more in just a minute, about owning the power of your own business and how you run your business and the choices that you make in that sense. But I released this person saying, I didn't think it was going to be a good fit because this was my fee for the project. And they were okay. And so that was that. And you know what happened? They came back within a day or two. They contacted me and apologized, first of all, for the haggle. And here's the really funny thing. They said not only did they want to do that project if I would still consider accepting them as a client, but they wanted to do 2 projects. They basically doubled what the fee was that I had quoted them, because they knew that was going to be a similar fee for the second project. And so instead of it disappearing off into the ethers because it wasn't a good fit, they actually rehabbed themselves, so to speak, their attitude and their pondering on the value that they knew they were going to get, and really realizing that this was silly for them to start haggling on price when the result they were going to get was far beyond the initial investment. And that's how you should be thinking too about your pricing and your clients, that they're going to get results beyond that initial investment. And so this individual came back hat in hand, kind of, so to speak, and said, would you accept me for this project? And may I add another one to the mix? And so you never know. But because here's the thing, when you release the outcome, instead of trying to force it or jam it into place or having any kind of air of desperation that this must happen or else, and you just know that you're making room for the right fit clients or for someone to become a right fit client, that can happen as well. So sometimes these things work themselves out as long as you are coming from a place of power in the first place. But I promised you I was going to tell you, and I hope it's okay if I kind of drop names here. I was going to tell you about my worst client ever. I mean, the worst. Oh, what a pain. This person was so difficult to work with. They dragged their feet. They didn't want to do the part that they needed to do to be able to make these things happen in their business. They were reluctant. They were argumentative. They were They were me. Okay. And so the thing is, and some of you have heard me say this before, the worst client you'll ever have, I pretty much can guarantee the worst client ever is yourself. And I urge you and recommend that, especially if you're just getting started in your business, whatever niche market you're in, but especially if you're a freelance copywriter, want to work with clients in that sense, that you have to understand that you're going to have a wrestling match with yourself when you first get started, because it's hard to be so close to the business of putting ourselves out there, of being able to share our message, that we can often find that more difficult than doing it for someone else. And maybe you can relate to that. And I certainly went through that. I resisted writing my own web copy. Even later on, when it was time to write new web copy, I resisted doing that. There's times when I feel like I don't want to turn the camera on today. There's times that are going to pop up all along the way where you're going to find that a troublesome client of yourself is getting in the way of what you need to get done. And so what does that mean, though? If your worst client is yourself, are you going to fire yourself? Is that what's going to happen, Tina? Is that what you're telling us to do here? Because if you fire yourself, you know what that means, right? It means you're quitting. It means you're giving up. So do you give up? Or do you, like some of my clients have done, where we started off one way and ended another? Do you rehab yourself? Do you get a grip on what you need to be able to do to grow your business, instead of finding excuses and finding ways to sabotage yourself using self-limitation, old beliefs, old stories that you're telling yourself about not really measuring up, or who are you to think you could do this, or all of the crises that we can have about our own identity and our own business. So possibly you might be relating to some of this as I say that, because here's the thing, though. There's more to being, we talk about freelance copywriting. We talk about being a freelancer because we're not getting a traditional job. We're not reporting into anyone in a 9-to-5 capacity or anything like that. But the thing is, that kind of gets lost in the shuffle, is that there's more to being a freelancer than just getting the project, than just having a gig, so to speak. There's much more to it, because you need to become an entrepreneur. You need to move beyond the freelancer mentality, which is basically taking orders, so to speak, like, okay, this person needs 2 sales letters, this person needs some blog posts, that type of thing, like a laundry list of tasks that you're going to deliver to someone and be paid for, to going to more entrepreneurial thinking. So what do I mean by that? I mean, as an entrepreneur, we need to be able to make commitments to ourselves. We need to make a commitment to yourself. You might make one to yourself, and you make one to your clients. And remember that worst client, you make a commitment to that person. You keep your promises. You keep your commitments. You deliver value, the promise to deliver value. The only problem is, and this is a problem, most of us have broken so many promises and commitments that we have made to ourselves over the years that we don't trust ourselves anymore. We don't even believe ourselves anymore. So even as we're saying this thing to ourselves, part of us is going, yeah, right. That there's that little voice that, you never do this. You always find a reason not to. And you'll find that again, that little voice in your ear saying, you're not really going to do this, right? And so if we can't trust ourselves, if we can't believe in ourselves, how can we expect a client to trust us? How can we expect a client to believe us if we don't actually believe ourselves with what we say to ourselves? Something to think about. Because is it hard to be an entrepreneur? Well, quite frankly, sometimes, yeah, it is. Let's just be real about this, okay? Yes, it absolutely is. And yes, I'm all about mindset and keeping focus on the positive and all of those things. But the fact of the matter is, there's going to be turbulation. There's going to be resistance. There's going to be pushback. And sometimes it comes right before the breakthrough, right before suddenly you're leveling up, right before that next thing happens that, wow, I didn't even realize this was possible, that I could do this in my business. Now, it's just not all rainbows and butterflies and Skittles and pixie dust and all of those things as an entrepreneur. And guess what? That's the way it is. We have to be able to do hard things. We have to be able to do them. And that's one of the things you can tell yourself. I am able to do hard things, because hard things will happen. I'm doing a hard thing all this week. I forgot to mention when I started, I'm in the mobile office, right? You may have noticed different background today, right? Because I'm on the road. I'm literally in the mobile office. early in the morning because I want to be able to honor my commitment to show up on a Tuesday, right? And I'm doing hard things all week this week. I drove 800 miles in 2 days to get here to this point where I knew I had a stopping point today because I wanted to do this. I had a commitment to show up live. I have a commitment to do 2 group coaching calls. I put them together on the same day because I have a commitment to those I serve. I have a commitment to show up. And I have a commitment later today to have some Texas barbecue because that's where we are. So we're actually in the hill country of Texas. And so stopping for the day, setting everything up, getting up super early, doing this way earlier than usual. Those are hard things. Those are hard things. Driving this thing can be a hard thing. It's not all glamorous all the time to drive a semi across country in a few days because we're on our way to Florida right now. Oh yeah, and I have a business call today too, a Zoom call. So all of that had to get jammed into one day. So, but that's the barbecue part's the easy part, right? And because I'm keeping a commitment to myself. This isn't to say, oh my gosh, aren't I glorious and grand? I'm just saying it's not always easy, and you should know that. You should expect that. You should understand that you're going to make that commitment and promise to yourself ahead of time, so you're not going to quit on yourself. So you're not going to sabotage yourself. So you're not going to let down the people that you serve, the people you've made a promise to. So look, things are either hard at the beginning, and then they get easy later, or easier at any rate, or they can be easy at the beginning, and then you get the nasty surprise that it gets harder later, and you're not really prepared for it. So, for example, copywriting. If you're learning how to write copy or learning how to write sales letters, you're doing all those things, copywriting can be hard at the beginning. It can feel hard. I remember writing my first sales letter, big sales letter, like 25 pages, 30 pages, that type of thing. Because silly me, I started off my copywriting career by writing sales letters because I didn't know. I didn't know anything different. I didn't know about email sequences. I certainly didn't know about funnels. There wasn't the funnel software there is now. It wasn't the dark ages, I promise, but things change fast on the internet a lot of the time. And so I started with a hard thing. And I can remember writing that sales letter and just stopping somewhere in the middle of it. It was just, I can literally picture in my mind the words on the page, and it's just like all these words, all these pages. And I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, where am I? I don't even know where I am in this mess of words I have on a page. How in the world do I do this? And I had to learn how to break it down into parts and pieces and a flow. And so now I have things I teach, like the anatomy of a sales letter and steps that take you through piece by piece of where each piece fits, that type of thing. But at the beginning, I was just kind of like thrashing around with the words, right? It was hard at the beginning, but now it's easier. Now I can write a sales letter like that very, very quickly, where then I struggled along, for some days. I don't think I took weeks, because I think I've always kind of had that urgency to get it done, get it done. Driving this big rig, this 45-foot mobile office is built on a heavy duty truck chassis. It looks like a semi, and I tow a 4-door Jeep Rubicon behind it through, tomorrow I'll be driving through Houston. We've already driven through El Paso. We've already driven through, we didn't have to go through Phoenix this time, but leaving Tucson, going through cities with it is not always an easy thing. Or when it's really windy, or if there's traffic, or there's a delay, if there's an accident that we're stuck on the freeway for a while. So driving this was hard at the beginning, learning how to drive this big rig. And now it's easier because I know what to do, and because it's become more second nature. Going live on camera. That can be hard at the beginning. It can be hard partway through. It can be hard today, that can feel really intimidating. It can feel scary. It can feel sweaty palm time. Recently, in doing this, now I'm live streaming into 3 platforms at the same time. So that felt a little hard at the beginning, like, wow, this is kind of crazy. I'm going to be in 3 platforms at once, right? But so all of these things get easier on the back end as you get used to it. And you need to be, and sometimes another reason to do that is sometimes we have a false sense of security if it's just like super easy at the beginning, and then it's like, oh my gosh, things are getting harder. How do I deal with a client? How do I get paid? How do I deal with multiple clients at the same time? How do I write all the copy for funnel? Ooh, that seems kind of hard right now, because I started off thinking it was all going to be easy street writing some blog posts, right? Now I want to expand my horizons, and I want to make more money, and I want to be able to charge higher fees. So it's actually not a bad thing for it to feel hard at the beginning, and to know that you're going to go through that that pushback, that turbulation, that feeling of can I do it? And the main difference is that you need to be able to withstand the hard things that happen. You need to know that this is a normal progression. And it's actually a lot of times a good sign that you're getting ready to have that breakthrough, that you're getting ready to go next level, that you're moving out of the way you've always done it, or the things you've always told yourself that have kept you locked in at the same level, maybe for years, maybe for decades, and knowing that it's not too late to move past that, no matter what, that you can move past that when you do those hard things. So what does that mean? It means you be the person who can do the hard things so you can have the results you desire. You become that person who's able to do it. You develop that muscle. I talk about developing your mindset muscle, and kind of the endurance muscle gets into that too. I mean, there's a lot of talk, and I think there's definitely a point to more ease in your business, being able to have more comfort in a sense, being more comfortable in your business. But I kind of see that as a double-edged sword, because sometimes we hear that so much, we think there must be something wrong with me if it feels difficult right now, or it feels challenging right now. And I just want to assure you that there's nothing wrong. It's just part of the process. It's part of the process. There's a peaks and valleys, ebb and flow to being an entrepreneur. And that's another thing that you learn to withstand. You learn to manage that when that happens. And because it will, especially when you're first getting started. So I just watched along the way, we spent some time in the evening watching some Netflix or whatever. And I just watched a new limited series on Netflix called Keep Breathing. It was kind of hard to watch at first because I wasn't quite sure where this was going. I don't want to give away anything of the story, but it's about a young woman named Liv who is on a private plane that crashes in Alaska. And the whole series is about her, what she has to do. Is she going to survive? What does she have to do? And there's a lot of scenes with her kind of having like sort of spiritual encounters with people from her past or people that were important in her life. And I'm not going to give away the ending if you watch it, but her mother is a very prominent figure in this whole story because her mother basically quit on her. Her mother had other issues and at some level decided her daughter would be better off without her. So at a young age, she kisses her goodbye and disappears into the night, never to be seen again. And so this young girl grows up with this whole aspect of loss and searching and trying to understand all of that. And so in this imaginary conversation, her mother tells her, you're just like me. You're just like me. And she says, no, I'm not like you because I never give up. And I just thought that was such a key understanding for this character to have, that she was not like someone else in her family. She was not going to take in a message from someone else that was not her message. She wasn't going to buy into or believe something someone else was telling her about herself. She wasn't going to self-sabotage by deciding that that was true for her and choosing what she believed. And she chose to believe that she was different than that and that she never would give up. And so I thought that's really an important thing, because that's why we need to toughen up also in our business, so we don't give up, so we don't quit on ourselves, so we don't fire ourselves. Because if you fire yourself, that's pretty much what you're doing. And so never giving up on this journey, on this entrepreneurial journey, and toughening up. Okay, we can have all the love and care in the world, but we do also have to have a little bit thicker skin along the way to be entrepreneurial. And it's not your business what other people think about you. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean kind of that individual, I don't really care for this person, or I don't like her purple hair, or I don't like the way her voice sounds, or I hate those Hawaiian shirts she wears. It's really not your business to be concerned about what other people think of you in that way. Because you have to be bold and brave with your message. You have to be willing to show up. You have to stand for something, right? And you have to be able to share that through your values and through the topics that you discuss and what you might be writing about if you're writing posts or on LinkedIn or someplace, wherever you may be posting, that you have to be willing to take a stand for what you believe. Like, I believe in a divine source for your business. I believe that that's your ultimate business partner. I believe that you need to be able to develop mental muscle, and that comes from the neuroscience of how our brains work, that there's a sacred science to it. And I believe this is necessary to be successful in your business, but especially if you choose to write your own copy or be a copywriter for clients, that you need to understand that it's more than the obvious and how you build all of this in, how it's all woven together as a fabric in how you communicate, how you write, what you have to say, what you believe, your willingness to show up. And so that's the difference. Okay. And so not really concerning ourselves and developing that thick skin, because there's going to be those trolls that come out from under the bridge, as I think of them as like 2 a.m, creeping out into the darkness, never to be seen by the light of day, that kind of a thing, to be able to leave some nasty comments somewhere, or to make sure that they got their point across on something you might have said. And so that part needs to happen, that you need to understand you're going to develop that core of strength, and you need to operate your business from what I call a perimeter of power and also an axis of authority. So what does that mean? Your perimeter of power is really your boundaries, right? Knowing yours, and don't let anyone else blur the edges. Remember that song Blurred Line? There's a whole thing about that, right? And so don't allow anyone else to blur your edges. Don't allow anyone else to creep in under the wire, so to speak, of your perimeter of power, because you need to create that for how you run your business, how you get paid, what your policies are. You get to decide that. You get to decide what your fees are. You get to decide the clients you work with. You get to decide when you give yourself a raise. And so you're operating from a perimeter of power, not at the beck and call of, like a reflexive kind of reactionary thing, but in leadership for yourself and in your business. Remember that worst client, right? You have to lead for yourself. And what do I mean by an axis of authority? An axis is, there's many different ways the word is used. The earth revolves on its axis, an imaginary line, every 24 hours, sunrise, sunset, right? That's a fixed line, a principal structure about which something is arranged, an anatomy, our spine, for example, a fixed reference point in geometry. There's mathematical aspect to this. So you need to have an axis, a core, a center line for yourself of authority, that you develop that certainty and that confidence that when you are speaking to a client, when you are imparting a message, when you're sharing your thoughts and your values, when you're writing copy, that you bring an authority to it of a certainty, and not like, an apologetic, hanging out in the corner kind of a thing. And you get that through experience. You get it by working with mentors. You get it by immersing yourself in a community where you're going to get that kind of help. You get it by having those calls with potential clients and learning how to have them effectively. That's a whole other topic. We'll talk about it another day. But to bring that confidence to the call and know that if you are learning marketing strategy, if you're beginning to write copy, that you can still bring a level of certainty to what you're doing, and you will get better over time. And that's your axis of authority that needs to be there all the time. You don't let someone else lead the conversation when you're speaking with a client. You don't let the client dictate, this is exactly what I want you to write, because it might not be in their best interest. So you need to have a deep enough understanding about the marketing and the strategy, and listen to what it is that they're actually trying to achieve, so that you can see if it's a good fit for you to help them with that or not, right? And so all of those things need to happen as far as you being entrepreneurial and not just a freelancer looking for a gig, right? There's plenty of people like that on Fiverr. That's great. But you want more than that for yourself. You want more than that. If you do, this is how you get there. So remember, there's a difference also between that personal reaction that you may have to being liked, to having someone put a heart or a like on your comment, or saying, wow, this was amazing, and there's a difference between kind of shielding yourself, having thick enough skin that if someone just like isn't kind to you, or has something to say that about why they think you're just full of fluff and you're not really saying anything meaningful, any of those things. There's a difference between being able to deflect that, kind of your force shield, or your little bubble of protection around your own heart and spirit, that it's not going to get to you, that you're going to learn how to navigate those waters. There's a difference between that and caring what others think about the value you bring in your business, really caring about the fact that they enjoy being in your program, that they're learning from you, that your client is getting sales from the copy you wrote them. There's a difference between not caring, about the personal attack thing, like being able to put that to the side, and truly caring and valuing the people that you serve and the people you work with, and knowing that you're going to bring that value. There's a difference between providing a customer experience that's positive, having customer service that is responsive and caring as well. If you have anyone working with you on your team, that you answer people, that you care for them, I already did a video a while back where I talked about loving your haters, right? And that if even when you get possibly something through your customer service or whatever, that's maybe not always extremely positive, or because there is an issue, that if you ignore people, that is an answer in itself of, I don't really care, right? And so we want to be responsive to people. Being a lean business, being a solopreneur, having a small team, maybe just working with a VA, that type of thing, is not an excuse for treating people badly. It's not an excuse for not taking care of your clients. It's not an excuse for not being responsive. Is it work? Yes. Can it add more time to your day sometimes? Yes. And as your business gets bigger and you expand and you're able to bring on a team or start having support in that way, that makes that where you can make life easier as well, where you have really good people like I do that are part of my team that really care. We all care about our clients. We have that combined mission, and those that are just going to give me an excuse about what they were busy, and so that's why you didn't hear from them for 2 weeks or whatever. So all of these things, though, I hope that you're seeing all of these things are how you can become your best client, not your worst, right? This is how you bring your best to those you serve. And this is how you will also find that being entrepreneurial is such a blessing. It gives you so much freedom in your life to be able to do what you want to do when you want to do it, to be able to, even when it's hard sometimes, to be able to travel all the way across country and still maintain and build a very thriving business, to be able to show up for those you serve, and the opportunities we have to do that. And especially with the technology, being able to do this, on the road like this is amazing, really. And I'm going to be here today. We're going to have a little bit of that barbecue this afternoon. And tomorrow I'll be on the road again, driving through Houston, driving in Louisiana, driving all the way to Florida, going down to the Tampa area. And so for some period of time, and being able to work from there as well. So I hope this is helpful, and that if it is, hey, of course, I want you to subscribe and follow and comment and all of those things, but also share this if you know of someone else that this could be helpful to. I've done, I remember my very first Facebook Live I did, and it was in a small private group. I was really nervous to do it. I did it inside a mastermind I was in, and I started sharing more of my story, which I had never really talked about at all, about when I was homeless and the things that happened when I was growing up, and how it made it difficult to believe in myself for a long time as an adult, all of those things. And I was absolutely shocked when I realized as I was doing it that I was going to start crying. And it was like, oh no. It was kind of like, no, I'm on here live. And so I literally took my phone and turned it away and just said, let's look at the view. I was outside on my property, and let's look at the view for a minute, kind of a thing, while I get myself together. And I just kept going. And I didn't even know enough when I did that live that I could flip my phone without turning it. And so the sound got dimmer for a few minutes. I mean, I made lots of mistakes on that one. But you know what happened? The core message came through so clearly that I had people asking me, would it be all right if I could share this? Is there a way that you can share this outside this group so that I may share it with someone I know that this would be helpful to them? And so it began being shared by people that I knew from the group to people I didn't know at all, because no matter how I flubbed, no matter that I embarrassed myself by starting to cry on camera, no matter that I turned my phone and the sound got weird for a minute because I didn't even know that I could just do the little, button thingy, that whole deal. And so it was okay. It was all right, because it still impacted. It still gave a boost to someone who needed it. It still gave an encouragement. And the true sincerity of my message was all very abundantly clear, right? And so that was my very first time doing a Facebook Live, even just in a small group. And so I understand those feelings. And I've had other times where I started to cry on camera. It's like, I'm not doing it today though. So, but it's just like, it's okay. It's okay. No matter what, it's going to be okay. So just understand that too. So yeah, share, comment, like, all of those things. And I'm just going to take a real quick look here, because I like to see if because we're live streaming from several different places. Let's take a look at the comments. Choosing our journeys. Facebook users, sometimes it's okay if you didn't get connected so we can see your name, but choosing our journey is often the hardest thing, and the Zoom later too, but I'm so glad you're here. You boost me. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And Eunice says, a good word in due season. planning more, making it happen, authentic, most helpful, knowing you owe Tina a debt of gratitude. Oh, no, you don't owe me a debt. No debts. The biggest payoff for me, the reward, is to see the students that I work with, the people that come into my mentoring programs succeeding, and to see them changing their life. And that's been such an amazing thing to me. My chilometer goes off even when I say it. I get goosebumps all over because, what I do is supposed to be a copywriting program, right? And that's why I say there's plenty of copywriting programs out there. If you want to just learn something, the latest, greatest thing from the latest, I just came on the scene a year ago and now I'm teaching you everything about copywriting. There's so many of those out there. You go dime a dozen, really. But I think what really sets apart what I do, quite honestly, is this combination of both the mindset aspect and the spiritual dimension, that core that we're not afraid to talk about. So I was for a while, that people are going to think I'm crazy, Tina, I'm crazy over there, because I'm going to start talking about it. But I was called to do that. And so some of my trolls said things like, well, if you're such a great copywriter, why are you teaching it? That kind of stuff. And I was just like, those aren't my people. They're not my people. You're not for everybody. Your message won't be for everyone. Your voice won't be for everyone. Your mission won't be for everyone. That's okay. All right. Because no one else can be you, and no one else is given the specific divine assignment that you have. And so my great blessing here is to be part of the connecting point, a conduit for people that agree with that, believe that, feel called to that. So I have my mentoring programs. I have Accelerated Entrepreneur. I have the Divine Equation, my Inner Circle Mastermind, where we go deeply, even further into all of this. I have my Cash Flow Copywriting Challenge, where you can learn what it's like to work with me at a very modest investment, to spend 5 days having Q&A with me while I answer your questions every single day for an hour. For 5 days straight, right? For a couple hours a day. And so to see the breakthroughs that happen for people in the shift in what they perceive they are capable of, the beliefs they have about themselves, the confidence that starts to grow, their understanding that they do have a divine assignment, and they begin to understand what it is. If they didn't already, they do by the time we're done working together, or they continue to work together. So that's the debt, so to speak, Eunice, of just seeing people take action and take those next steps, and seeing that expansion of literally changing careers. It's really fun to me how many PhDs I have in my program, how many people that have doctorates that have come into my program, me who high school graduate and hasn't been to college, but has been guided by divine source, as well as my own mentors and my own journey of learning. And because it's ongoing, it's not a one-off kind of a deal. So all of that. And someone's on Facebook user, I'm sorry you don't have your names when you come into this way. I can't see what your names are, but says they're going through a process of listing why this is important to me and the things that are blocking me and what that fear looks like. And also I'd recommend that in that process, list the rewards of making the change, because sometimes the things that are going to change, we're afraid of, or threatened by, or we think other people will be, and some people will be. Okay. That's why you need a community. That's why you need the community with like-minded people that say, hey, you're on the right track and we get it. We understand. And you choose who you're going to share these things with, who you're going to allow to hear your dream, because what are you going to allow in the messaging that comes in, all of those things. And it's Tracy. Hi, Tracy. Yes, I see it now because you're saying it, but the Facebook user thing is not showing me your name. And Jenny's saying, I feel like you're speaking directly to my heart today. Thank you for your inspiring message. You're very welcome, Jenny. And it's just, thanks for showing up. I know some of you said, oh, I can't be there that early. And here's Jackie. Oh, I love this one. Bless them and release them. Yes. Sort of like catch and release. So that's it for today. I'm going to get ready for my mentoring call next. And for those of you, this was a little on the early side for in the West Coast. I know some of you were like, wow, that's like 5 or 6 in the morning for me. And I get it. But here I am living in a recorded land. So you're going to be able to see this on the replay. I really love when you comment and let me know if this is helpful to you. Let me know what else you'd like me to talk about on some of these calls, on some of the broadcasts. I'm here to speak to what you need, what it is that you'd love to know more about, what you need encouragement with. That's why I do this. And thanks so much for being here with me. I truly do love you. And I really mean that. I didn't used to know what that meant, that how can you love people you don't know? But you know what? I've learned that. I learned that later in life. And I truly do. And I'm excited to see all the journey that you're on and be part of it, and honored to be part of that as well. So thanks for being here with me today. I'll be talking to you again soon. And until then, take care.